Hello, 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 and welcome to Courageously Kind. I'm Maddie.
And I'm Liz. We're twin sisters and best friends.
Together, we share stories of especially kind humans doing especially kind things, in hopes that these conversations motivate and inspire you to be kinder to yourself and others. When we're not speaking with an incredible guest, we'll speak directly from our hearts about what it means to us to be courageously kind. Today we're talking about the topic of representation. I know we've probably touched on this topic before, but we really wanted to go super in depth with it today, talk about what it is and why it's so important.
Yeah, we talked about facial equality a lot before, but representation, is so much more than just equality, and we can go a lot deeper than what we've already talked about.
And today specifically, we're going to be talking about representation for people with facial and physical differences, but representation is really important for everyone. Disability or not, all races, we all deserve to feel seen and heard and included in the film and television and media that we consume.
Absolutely. So let's jump right into it and kind of define what representation is. It's pretty self-explanatory, but we always advocate for fair and equal representation. So this is, we want to see ourselves on screen. We want to be represented, honestly and genuinely, because especially right now, we aren't being represented fairly. Equally.
And I think the other thing too is just seeing characters that we can relate to, seeing characters that look like us, that talk like us, that have similar life experiences. It's so empowering. It gives us so much courage and it inspires us to be who we really are and to celebrate ourselves. I think that's part of why representation is so important. It's so empowering.
Absolutely, to see yourself on screen. And, we sparked this conversation. We didn't spark it, but we started this conversation a couple of days ago on one of our social media accounts. And a lot of people said, I didn't even think of this before.
Yeah.
Because when you feel represented, it's easy to forget about those that haven't been represented well.
Absolutely. So let's talk about what, good representation or what positive representation looks like as compared to some of the representation out there now that is not so beneficial to society, I guess.
So first, it's really important to acknowledge and recognize that people with facial scars, disfigurements, and I hate the word disfigurement, but it's important that, I don't know. I hate to use that word, but
it's a really common word, and it's a word that people know and understand.
Right.
And maybe someday we can get away from using that word that has such a negative connotation, but for now, it can be kind of a gateway.
Right. So anyone with any kind of disfigurement has been portrayed in a negative light. So if you Google, famous villains, I guarantee you it won't take 5 seconds to find one of them that is disfigured.
It's a common trope, I feel like, to portray villains as with scars or with deformities, as sort of they write it into their storyline.
Yeah, they often have, some sad, tragic backstory, and now, they are the monsters or the villains. And to, you or I, this might not be that harmful. We might be able to look past it and have it not affect our judgment when meeting people. But to children, this is so harmful.
Because they start to associate these characteristics, things like scars and things like differences, with these villains, with these scary characters.
Right.
And so then when they see a person, say out in public, who has scars, they might associate them with fear.
Yeah.
And that's not what we want at all.
Right. And that's totally, a step in the wrong direction.
And it's sort of subconscious, right? I don't think people really realize, I don't think the people that are producing these films and TV series and things like that, I don't think they realize the effect it has. I don't think parents realize the effect it has. Because kids don't naturally see these things as scary, right? They might be different and they might be curious about those differences, but they're not instinctually fearful of them.
That fear is taught.
Yes. Whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so how you can help is first be very vigilant.
Very aware.
Very aware. There are plenty of great resources, especially now more than ever, that are inclusive and that, especially teach children all about differences, And so we need to be actively choosing those resources
to sort of counteract these harmful stereotypes.
Absolutely.
Another thing you said something about the tragic backstory that I just wanted to touch on briefly. I think it's another common trope in film and media that everyone who either has a disfigurement or a disability has some sort of tragic backstory. That's a common trope, that maybe they were in an accident or maybe they just have some tragic childhood story, and that's just not the case.
It's not accurate.
It's not accurate. So many people I know that are disabled or have disfigurements had a seemingly happy childhood.
Yeah, and that story, that trope that people that are disabled or disfigured must be depressed or must be sad all the time
or must be ashamed.
Right.
I think that was a big comment surrounding the Wonder movie. I personally have not seen the full movie. I haven't even read the full book, so I'm not going to comment too much about that. But I've heard a lot of people saying, a lot of kids that were consulted when creating the movie, saying, I'm not ashamed. I don't want to hide.
Yeah. I've gotten questions of how you feel about that movie. And I think it's a wonderful step in the right direction. But that question was in rebuttal to, me talking about, here are some characters that are, problematic. And people's response was, well, what about Wonder? That's one film.
Right.
And the thousands of harmful films.
And to talk about Wonder again for another minute, I think it definitely sort of taught people about Treacher Collins.
It was
that was huge.
Yes.
It sort of became, I don't want to say like a household name, but it became more known.
Yeah.
And that's huge.
Yes. It was a wonderful step in the right direction, but it was just one step.
And another thing that I saw that I want to talk about that movie is the child that played the main character with Treacher Collins did not actually have Treacher Collins. He was a wonderful actor. He did a phenomenal job.
Wonderful job.
I saw so many articles when looking this up, when researching for this episode, about how he had to endure 2 hours of makeup and prosthetics. And it was challenging because he couldn't speak the way he normally would. And it just made me kind of scratch my head because so many of these young people live with this condition.
Right.
We don't talk about the difficulties of this condition.
Yeah.
We talk about the difficulties of putting on prosthetics.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
And I think that that's a conversation we need to have.
But again, Wonder was a wonderful step in the right direction.
Absolutely.
But we need to keep walking.
And I think the next step is hiring actors with these conditions. Because I'm sure they're out there. I'm almost certain that they're out there. We need to start hiring disabled and disfigured actors to play disabled and disfigured roles. Because who knows that experience better than them?
Right. I was watching a panel a couple weeks ago about, representation, and somebody said, I can't remember who it was, somebody said nothing about us without us.
Yeah.
I thought, oh yeah, that's perfect.
Yeah. You sort of seen the repercussions of that with a movie that came out recently that, again, I don't want to go too much into it, but the community that this movie was supposedly made for felt very hurt and very offended and very excluded from the conversations that went into making this movie.
Right.
And just let that be a lesson of what not to do. If you're going to make a film or anything, any kind of content about a certain group of people, for a certain group of people, they have to be a part of the conversation, or else you're not going to get it right.
Right. Nothing about us without us. And I can't remember. I have to find out who said that. Because
I remember hearing that too. And it's just, I think the answer is simple. Start including these people.
Yeah.
Start including everyone. Include everyone in the creation of these stories, because I think there's so much good talent out there and so many people that can contribute so greatly to this content.
I mean, who better to tell these stories than people that have lived them?
And that's actually, you know, when Liz and I talk about like our big goals and our big dreams, one of them is to be able to create content that accurately represents the facially different community, specifically.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's one of our big dreams.
Yeah. Because it's so important and it needs to be done.
And it could help so many young people feel empowered and feel courageous and feel comfortable and confident in their bodies.
Absolutely. I mean, who doesn't want to feel that way?
Who doesn't want to feel that way? Who doesn't want to feel empowered and confident?
Yeah.
So representation is the key. And I think we're on the right track.
Absolutely.
In terms of fair and equal representation for all.
We'd like to give a huge thank you to Annawalt's Landscape Contracting for their support of Courageously Kind.
Annawalt's is a family-owned landscape contracting company in Berks County that has served Pennsylvania for over 35 years.
If you're ready to get your landscaping project started, visit annawaltlandscape.com or call 610-916-7070.
Annawalt's Landscape Contracting, beautifying Pennsylvania 1 yard at a time.
Thank you so much for listening. If you like this episode, feel free to share it with your friends, your family, or anyone you think might like it too.
And if you want to support the show, leave us a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help. Or check out our merch store at courageouslykind.org. Take good care, and we'll see you back here real soon.